In this segment, we're going to be talking about the EU confronts the UK on wind turbines in the first WTO dispute since Brexit, and this is hilarious because this is the second instance, possibly of the EU taking the UK to court. The first one was over the failure to check Chinese exports of like jewelry and stuff. We failed to do like proper VAT and customs duties on these products. Now it looks like we could be taken to a WTO court over subsidies. Some of the wording here is not the best, it's very confusing, but once you get later down in the article, it makes sense. So the EU launched a case against the UK at the WTO over British subsidies for offshore wind farms in a significant escalation of post-Brexit tensions. Brussels claimed that new criteria introduced by the UK in awarding subsidies for offshore wind products favour those using turbines sourced domestically over imports in breach of WTO rules. So essentially what the UK has done is said, look, we want to build wind turbines, but in the contracts what they've said is they have to use a certain amount of UK manufactured goods, which impacts EU kind of competitiveness in this field. The move signals the start of the first dispute between the EU and its former member involving the global trade body since the end of the Brexit transition period in December 2020. We also saw warning shots from the EU Commission last year about this. They did warn us that don't do this. It comes as the two sides remain deadlocked over the implementation of the withdrawal deal. The criticism used by the UK government in awarding subsidies for offshore wind projects favour UK over imported content. The European Commission said in a statement, this violates the WTO's core tenet that imports must be able to compete with an equal footing with domestic products and harms EU suppliers, because EU suppliers, regardless of how competitive they are or how good the products they offer, they won't be used for these wind turbines because the British government want to favour British supplied products, including many SMEs in the green energy sector. The British government said it would rigorously contest the claim. I know how to pronounce it, I just can't do it for some reason, which the UK are fair to do. The UK's contracts for different scheme gives financial support to green energy products, in practice mostly offshore wind farms, in a bidding process, which is fine. You can do that in a bidding process. We want to offshore it to private companies, but then you can't kind of shut out certain private companies from doing trade according to the WTO. And I'll talk more about the WTO towards the end of the video. Since December, the UK asked bidders to outline how much of the contract's value will be produced in the UK to determine their eligibility, and that's obviously a problem because the EU want as much of these wind turbines to be built from EU products as much as possible, because that's more money for EU manufacturers, for example. Payouts then depend on whether the operator sticks to its commitment on that local production, which it makes sense why the UK want to do this, because they want to boost manufacturing within the UK. The incentives operators to favour UK content in their applications to the detriment of imported inputs, the Commission said. It added that the WTO's national treatment principle prohibits members from discriminating against imports in favour of domestic products, which, if these things are the case, it sounds like the EU have a very strong case. Moreover, such local content criteria leads to losers in efficiency and raises prices for consumers, which makes sense because, again, it doesn't matter how good Germany, France, Italy, Sweden, these countries are at manufacturing these wind turbine products. They will not be used because the UK is paying more for these wind turbine manufacturers to use British-made products, which is true. It does raise price for consumers because that'll be taxpayers who are paying for this. Loss in efficiency because you're using companies that may not be as good at manufacturing as EU competitors or even rest of the world competitors. Ultimately making the transition to secure supply of renewable energy is more difficult and costly, the Commission has said, and it's ironic because it feels like the Commission are looking out more for the British taxpayer than the British government are, which obviously they're not doing it for that reason, but in a way they are doing so. But then again, it is a loss for British manufacturing, which again does benefit the British taxpayer, so it depends how you want to look at it. The UK is second only to China in terms of installation of wind power capacity. It makes sense that the UK would favour wind power because the UK is windy as hell, and we're an island as well, so offshore wind is a big possibility for us. but this concentration has not translated into a British jobs and manufacturing boom, which has instead benefited from foreign companies, including those in the EU and China. And it will also make sense, China can manufacture this stuff way cheaper because of their labour conditions, and also given that they're the number one user of wind power, they would be an expert in the field. Lobby group Renewable UK estimate that just 29% of capital expenditure on offshore wind projects goes into the UK economy. So that'd be, manufactured in the UK, for example. Prime Minister Boris Johnson waits to lift that level of capex spent, with UK-based supplies to between 40 and 50% and 60% of lifetime spend, including maintenance. So the UK are looking at going from, less than 30%, 29% of the wind turbine manufacturing and maintenance to go to 40 or 50%. So essentially half the wind turbine will be manufactured in the UK and also maintained, with UK products, which again is fine, very socialistic in one country, but okay, it makes sense in a sense. One British official said ministers were puzzled, or you could end the sentence there, as to why Brussels was challenging the scheme when EU countries use similar methods. At a time when, this is their stupid point, I guess we'll talk about this official point first, which is they're puzzled why the EU countries use similar methods. And we're going to go to our resident expert on competition, Kai.
Sorry, Grams, but
seeing as the UK voted for Brexit and to leave the EU single market and customs union for goods and services,
we're not teammates, we're competitors, and I want action. Hey!
Yes, that is right, ladies and gentlemen. We're not teammates with the EU anymore. We're competitors, and the EU will do, will go to the WTO to help EU-based manufacturing out to essentially compete with UK manufacturing, because there's money to be made there for EU manufacturers. If the UK favours UK manufacturing just because they're based on the UK in the UK, it means EU manufacturers are losing out, essentially. So, quote, at a time when the West should be united in defeating Putin, this act of envy by Brussels is ill-judged and ill-timed. And again, phrasing it in this way, the West should be united in defeating Putin. This has very little to do with Putin. This act of envy, it's nothing to do with envy. This is, big man, we have WTO rules. This is the case. You're favouring your own domestic production over worldwide production. That's not fair for our businesses under the WTO rules. We're taking you to court. And, the UK can be puzzled why Brussels is challenging it when they use similar methods. The reason why some of these methods aren't taken to court, to the WTO, is because the WTO is a very political court. It exists of, nation states which are very political. So in this case, you would think that the EU would not take the UK to court, to the WTO over this, because the EU does a similar practice, when that is for the majority of time the case, but the EU want to take this to court, so it's going to get taken there because they're seeing the UK making a political decision to benefit UK businesses over their own politics. So it could be interesting. The UK could flip it and say, well, you're also giving subsidies, giving your domestic manufacturers a massive edge. We want to sue you as well, or we want some sort of recompense as well, essentially. So it'll be interesting to see how this one pans out. These cases can take years, to be honest, especially because of Donald Trump's decimation of the WTO courts via not electing judges. So the quote goes on, we should be working together to strengthen European clean energy security, not fighting this out in court, which again, this isn't about European clean energy security. This is about the UK wanting to boost its own manufacturing, its own economy by using predominantly UK manufacturing, when even as the EU Commission puts it, it's going to affect efficiency and cost because you're limiting your pool of manufacturers, essentially. The two sides have 60 days to reach an agreement at the WTO before Brussels could demand a panel of arbitrators rule on the dispute, which could take at least a year. So if I can get a year's worth of content out of this, that would be incredible. But we'll touch on this stuff once it's important. So if there is some sort of resolution in 60 days, we'll talk about it. If there isn't, then we'll talk about it again. The two sides have 60 days to reach an agreement, I mentioned that. The move by Brussels could add to domestic political pressure on Johnson to suspend parts of the protocol. Again, this is a red herring. Why would we start suspending bits of the Northern Ireland Protocol, invoking Article 16 over this. It makes no sense. Tory MPs have urged him to do so and end checks between Northern Ireland and Great Britain. The UK government said, we are disappointed that the Commission has taken this course of action at a time when we are focused on increasing our energy security and supply of homegrown renewable energy. And again, this is a red herring because this has nothing to do with energy security and supply of homegrown renewable energies. This is to do with the manufacturing of the actual wind turbines. That's all it has to do with. Nothing to do with how many wind turbines we're going to use and all this nonsense. It's to do with how are these things manufactured? Who are the manufacturers, the suppliers? That's the key question here. Adding the UK abides by WTO law and will rigorously contest the EU's challenge. So we'll see what happens with this one. But this is the first kind of major trade dispute that isn't to do with the Northern Ireland Protocol. So we'll definitely keep an eye on it, see what happens. But this is to do with subsidies. And, as the UK starts manufacturing other things, the Tory government go for other infrastructure projects like nuclear power and whatever else we go for. It'd be interesting to see if the EU or other WTO members take us to court, to a WTO arbitration panel or WTO court over subsidies. So we'll see what happens with that. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I hope my examples and stuff made sense. I'll try and understand it a bit better in future because it is kind of confusing. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.